My name is Clara. 5 years ago, I was a brand new nurse, fresh out of school, and full of an optimism that hadn't been crushed yet. Jobs were scarce, so when a position opened up at St. Dymphna's, a remote sanatorium tucked deep in the mountains, I took it. I told myself the isolation would be peaceful, a quiet way to start my career. The place itself was a relic, basically a monument to decay. The air was a thick, heavy mix of antiseptic and dust, and the long, empty hallways seemed to literally swallow the light. My footsteps were the only sound, and they echoed way too loudly. The man in charge, Dr. Alistair Blackwood, was an intense guy with eyes that felt like they were looking right through you. During my initial tour, he gestured to a heavy, bolted door. "The West Wing," he said, his voice clipped and sharp. "It's structurally unsound. For everyone's safety, it stays sealed." My first week was a total blur of routine and exhaustion. The few elderly patients we had were stable, and their days were marked by a quiet monotony. It was on a Thursday, late into a double shift, that things started to feel off. While doing my rounds, I passed room 213, a room I knew for a fact had been empty for years. And I heard it, clear as day, a soft, dry cough from inside. I froze right there in the hall, just listening. Silence. I convinced myself it was nothing, just the old building groaning or the wind. It's amazing what you can rationalize when the alternative is just too terrifying to consider. But it was the first thread, and the entire tapestry of my reality was about to unravel. Later that night, it got even stranger. A call light started flashing on the main board. It was for a bed in the old tuberculosis ward, a section of the hospital we never used. My heart hammered against my ribs when I walked down that darkened hall. When I pushed the door open, a wave of intense cold just washed over me. The room was empty, of course. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Over the next few days, the activity ramped up. I'd catch these fleeting shadows in my peripheral vision, but they'd be gone the second I turned to look. Then came the whispers, faint and hissing, echoing from empty hallways. It almost sounded like they were repeating a name, over and over. Lily. One afternoon, I cornered an older, weary-looking janitor and asked him about the West Wing. All the color drained from his face. "Dr. Blackwood's work is his own," he muttered, refusing to meet my eyes. "Some doors are kept locked for a reason, miss. You'd be wise to forget you have a key." The breaking point came during a violent thunderstorm. The power flickered on and off, casting the sanatorium in this terrifying strobe of light and shadow. Above the roar of the thunder, I heard it, a child sobbing. The sound was faint, but it was unmistakable, and it was coming from behind the sealed West Wing door. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. But the sound of a child in distress, I'm a nurse. I couldn't just ignore it. On a hunch, I checked Dr. Blackwood's office and found it unlocked. His keyring was just sitting there on the desk. I snatched it and ran to the West Wing. The old lock groaned in protest before finally clicking open. The air that hit me was stale and smelled of ozone and something else. Something metallic and just wrong. This wing wasn't just decaying, it was a laboratory. Strange medical devices sat draped in white sheets, and rusted cages lined the walls. On a steel table, a single patient file lay open. The name on it was Lily, a child who had died of pneumonia 60 years ago. But behind the official report were Dr. Blackwood's handwritten notes. No, not his grandfather's. They detailed horrific treatments designed to sever the soul from its residual trauma. Suddenly, the door clicked shut behind me. Dr. Blackwood stood there, his expression completely unreadable. "A curious nurse," he said softly. "My grandfather believed the spirits here were simply patients in need of a cure. I am continuing his vital work." I didn't scream. The sound was trapped in my throat. I saw the glint of a syringe in his hand, and I reacted. I threw the heavy file at him and bolted. I fumbled with the lock as he lunged for me. The door swung open, and I just ran. I didn't stop for my locker. I didn't stop to clock out. I ran through the storm to my car, my nursing shoes slipping in the mud, and I drove. I drove until the sun came up, until St. Dymphna's Sanatorium was just a dark memory in my rearview mirror. I never told anyone. Who would believe me that a doctor was holding ghosts captive, performing monstrous experiments on the souls of the dead? They say the greatest horror is the unknown, but that's not true. The greatest horror is the evil that men do, the cruelty they inflict in the name of progress or healing. St. Dymphna's wasn't just haunted by its past. It was a prison, and Dr. Blackwood was the warden. The spirits weren't the threat, they were the victims. Sometimes late at night when the house is quiet, I can still hear a child sobbing. And I wonder how many other patients are still trapped in that West Wing, waiting for a cure that will never come. If these kinds of stories leave you wanting more, make sure to like this video and leave a comment with your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next terrifying tale. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share, you can find submission information in the description below.